All right, everybody. We've got another very special guest for y'all. Want everybody to please welcome to the show Ben Mauro. Welcome, Ben.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure, man. I'm glad we got a chance to sit down and talk. There's so much we can go through, but I know you got this great project that we got to help promote and talk about. But let's start from the beginning. I would love to hear kind of where you got your roots, specifically in comics. Like, did you always have a love for it? Where's your kind of beginnings there, and how did it lead you to this point?
Yeah, I mean, my background is more in like movie concept art and video game concept art and stuff. So I didn't come from a traditional like comic book background, but I was always obsessed with like French graphic novels, American comic books, Japanese manga, Ghost in the Shell, Akira, and stuff like that. A lot of European stuff like um, Meta Barons, Mobius the artist, Incal, and stuff like that. Like really kind of out there stuff. I ended up working on something called Valerian, which was an old European French graphic novel, also, which was really cool. But a lot of it's more kind of had more of a movie and game concept art background. So I got really good at like telling stories and working with directors who have a script or are writing the script and having to come up with lots of key story moments for what does this look like when the hero this like pivotal moment of the story, and I think it started to train me to like how to tell stories in images, and a lot of the seeds of what I ended up making for Huxley was maybe started from some of that. Like, oh, how do I if I want to tell my own story, how would I do that? Um, and yeah, some of the seeds were planted when just having to make so many different stories and visualize stories for other people for so many years. Yeah.
Yeah, I find it interesting you have such a background in different uh, IPs that I think a lot of the people in the audience and myself would be fans of. And while I feel maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of people would have a decent understanding of what concept or storyboard art for a movie would be, which is we always kind of joke that that's what a comic book is. But I'm interested to see when you work with Microsoft Activision on the video game side, how is there storyboarding going on? Or are you just concept arting stuff for them?
It depends. For films, very much so. Like, say on Elysium with Neil Blomkamp, like that was very much he comes to the studio with like a small outline of like the basic idea of what he wants his movie to be, and then he's like, "Oh, let's just explore what this whole universe looks like while I'm writing the script," and we're coming up with cool ideas, and then we get an outline for a script, and then keep exploring, and then we have a full script, and then it's like, okay, I need to like every shot in my movie or every
Hmm.
key moment in my movie, to see if he thinks it's working or not. Also, and just like you start seeing it fleshed out and brought to life, and um, but for video games, like say on like Halo Infinite, uh, maybe less so, but there's definitely like a cinematic department. So there was a lot of a whole team, like, here's the story, here's Master Chief's story, here's all the previs of shots that I want, here's the story moments that the game director wants to tell in this story. So it was there, but maybe less so than what happened on a movie, just because
Hmm.
it's a lot of a game is interactive gameplay and stuff like that. That the player will make the story themselves a lot of
Yeah.
the time.
So, would you say more of the storyboarding goes into like cinematics in between when the player's playing?
Yeah, sort of. Like I remember on like Halo Infinite, there was a lot of maybe blocked out story. Like I think we were working on like this new like alien species that was like the enemy in there, and I was involved on the new creature. So a lot of it was just like, hey Ben, how would this character look in this kind of scene, and coming up with like uh maybe like the poses, what it would look like, what kind of effects would happen during like a dramatic moment, and things like that. But I think for like something like that, a lot of the designs were already done, so it was more about like illustrating. Master Chief's already designed, Cortana's already designed. Um, it's more about like this moment with these characters that we all um, knew and loved. Yeah. And there's the cat.
There's my cat. Yeah, she's got to be involved somehow. Uh, yeah, because I've seen as somebody that's also an enjoyer of video games. I've seen a lot of like concept art and how they. It seems like you guys are just drawing tons and tons of different things to try to figure out the visual language of the video game, but to actually storyboard out things, especially in some of the games I like to play, because I like to play the role playing games and the JRPGs and everything. I'm sure there's not a whole lot of trying to predict where the player's going in those, but something like a Call of Duty or Halo, I could see with the big visual moments in it, um, that it would be much more useful for uh, the game designer to figure things out as it's
Yeah.
going along.
I guess it depends on
So,
the game and story also, like, Call of Duty especially is trying to be like a you're playing a giant blockbuster movie or something, so they really wanna go pretty far into, like, Hollywood movie kind of moments.
mhm.
I was gonna say something else, but, I'll think of it again.
Yeah, and it seems like you've, as I was looking through your resume and the email I got from you guys, that you really hit it off with Neil Blomkamp, and you did a bunch of his movies throughout the years. How did that relationship build? And like, when did you guys meet and kind of work together?
That all happened when I was, working at Weta Workshop in New Zealand, so I spent around 4 years in New Zealand, specifically because I was so obsessed with District 9, like, I just thought that was the coolest movie ever made, so original, there's so much style to that, and, um, I was still a student in Los Angeles at Art Center, and I was like, "What would be the best way to work on it? Whatever he's gonna do next, I wanna work on it, how would I do that?" And I felt like Weta would be maybe the best way or, like, the most direct way to hopefully work on his next movie, because they worked on, like, everything on District 9, so I was hoping that would happen and found a way to go down there originally for the Hobbit movies, um, and then when Neil started working on his next movie, he came back to Weta, was like, "Hey, I think I got my idea, I think I know what I want to make," and then they started, and then I immediately was like, "Oh, please, I really wanna work on this," and slowly, got involved pretty early to help make that one happen.
I gotta assume you were working on things before all this. Like, what was your intro into that industry that kind of gave you a name, at least amongst the people you're working with?
Well, Weta was one of the first. I was a student in Los Angeles, and I did some small internships. So I think my first internships were at like, well, I guess I started working at like Design Studio Press and some of these like book companies. A lot of it was like working with really big artists that I looked up to who were my teachers at the time, like Scott Robertson and Neville Page and these guys who were, I think Neville just started working on Avatar. And like, so I just, it was like a really direct line to like, wow, my teachers are amazing and they're working on the biggest stuff in the world. And you're just kind of learning from all these great people. So at the time I was working on some books, one called like Alien Race and another, a few other books that ended up getting published. And, and then my first internships were at, like, Sony Pictures Animation. I think a lot of stuff ended up getting canceled that I worked on that summer. One was, like, Hotel Transylvania, which I think was some, like, Adam Sandler movie that came out, and I worked on a lot of small things like that. Uh, but it was, like, really cool experience because I like, the person I worked with was, like, Paul Hossein, and on the movie that ended up getting canceled, but he was, like, the matte painter on Alien 3, and he had, like, the glass painting from, like, the beginning of Alien 3. I was like, "Oh my god, you painted that, like, on glass?" And he was just like I was like, what were your ideas for this? And, like, how did you come up with this?" And so that was really cool. Like, there's so many amazing people in all these different jobs and in animation in LA. And then after that was also, like, Insomniac Games. So I was, like, really early on working an internship in Insomniac, working on I think it was, like, Resistance 3 was that back then, and then, like, a Ratchet& and Clank game, and then Ready at Dawn was, like, the last internship. I think I worked on another, like, early game that never came out, and then at the very beginning of, like, this game called, like, The Order, I think. I think that eventually came out, it looked amazing,
Yeah,
but
the Order
yeah.
1883.
But it was, like,
Yep.
super early. So
Mhm.
at the start, I was kind of, as a student, like, working on all these different things and just trying to see what I liked. But I think long term, I really was obsessed with, like, science fiction movies, like District 9. It was like, if there's a way I could somehow do that, I gotta find a way to do that, and, um, one of my teachers who I was interning with, Carlo Ariano, I was at Comic-Con that year, and he grabbed me and was like, "Do you have your portfolio?" I was like, "Yes, I do." He's like, "Come with me," and he brought me to meet Richard Taylor at Weta, and I showed Richard my work, and he was kind of like, "Oh, this is amazing. We don't really have anything right now, but I'd love to keep in touch. We might need some help on The Hobbit." And kind of I just kind of slowly kept in touch, and took about a year of me like checking in, like, "Hey, here's my work," and always like an update, like, um, "Here's some new work. Here's how much I've improved. Still love to work with you guys someday." But it took about a year of that before they were finally like, "Hey, actually, we need some help, and we'd love to bring you over." And uh, definitely wasn't a quick thing, but that was my, I think, maybe moment or shot, and I kind of went for it and moved my whole life, went to New Zealand, and um, worked on a bunch of cool stuff that I really enjoyed. Yeah.
And we talk a lot with comic artists, obviously on the show, because you see them as they're growing in their career and they're moving up. You get to see them develop their style, as we put it, throughout the years, very much in public. Like they're putting out commercial work as they're developing their style and trying to figure out who they are as an artist. How much how much different is that for you? A little, I know it's still a commercial product, you're putting it out there, but you're a little bit more behind the scenes. It's not your direct image that's on the screen. Is there a huge difference there? Did you have to build your style before getting into these internships and these jobs, or?
But I mean, I think because in school you're just you almost don't have time to think because you're doing so much work. So like a lot of the personal style and voice just starts coming out because there's just so much volume. Um, you kind of start to see like what do I like? What kind of things do I gravitate towards? I kind of like drawing more like this. I like these types of designs, and you kind of start naturally finding like things that you like more or less, or the school kind of molds you a little bit like, hey, you need to
Mhm.
learn perspective and this, and you have to draw things this way so it's visually people can just understand it. But I think a lot of the style starts coming out that way. Um, and there's a lot of for me though, for Huxley, I guess it was a little different to maybe like a traditional comic book or manga artist or graphic novelist, where a lot of what I did for Huxley was because I wasn't able to do that in the game and film industry. Um, because it's almost like an arms race of technique. So like once I like my portfolio at the time was probably like pencil drawings that I illustrated in Photoshop, like really traditional uh at the time. Um, but then the moment I went to the film industry, it was just like, hey, everything needs to be photoreal. The director likes you got to use photos, you got to do this. Oh, this director wants everything sculpted a zebra so you can see exactly what the creature is going to look like in the movie. And it was like, well, I have to learn that
Mhm.
really fast to keep up, or I'm out of a job. So um, very quickly get away from like doing pencil drawings and illustrating things, and having a lot of character to my work just to be as photoreal as possible for the job, which is fine. But Huxley almost came out of it's like a byproduct of me wanting to have and do things that were more like what I did when I was in school. Like, I feel like I'm an artist. I drew this character from scratch. Like every line and shape was like out of my imagination.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that kind of helped me like be okay with doing whatever new technique was needed for the job, because I knew every night or in every weekend I could be doing something that I felt like was art. And it just slowly turned into what became Huxley. And um, I think that balance was helped me a lot and was important. Yeah.
So it sounds like you gotta be a little more flexible with your style per se, depending on the job.
Yeah, a little bit. But even so, like I still think when I look at my work, I mean, definitely like for production work, it was definitely influenced by the artist I was on, or the director likes certain things. So you kind of learn to adapt to um those types of things. Especially if it's like a established IP like The Hobbit, or like especially even Halo, like, this is what the UNSC looks like, this is what the Covenant looks like,
Yeah.
this is the Banished. Like I can't just come up with that like totally different. So it's like you got to learn the house style, and like, okay, here's the Forerunner architecture, here's what I think, here's this
Yeah.
cool thing in Halo 1. and it's my job to make like the cool updated one in Halo Infinite. Like as a fan of that, I know exactly what I need to do, and I can keep it within the style and hopefully be respectful to the things I love that I think what fans will love. And um, so yeah, you kind of have to learn. It's like it's like learning another language and like understanding like okay, I got to talk this way for
Like,
this, and it's okay to like improvise over here or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, I could see why like 343 would want to keep their language throughout and not maybe hire a let's say a Mike Allred to do their storyboarding or their concept arcs. It'd be a drastically different style and feel to what they're doing.
But sometimes I
Yeah,
mean, like, I remember growing up and there was like some Halo graphic novels, and it's specifically they
yeah,
wanted each one to be totally different style, which is cool. Like,
yeah,
oh, here's like Phil Hale, this like awesome painter who doesn't really do sci-fi. And they had him do like the cover of like Master Chief in oil painting. You're like, whoa, I've never seen Master Chief in this style. Like, that's so cool. So sometimes it just depends on yeah what it
well, what
is.
was that animated like anthology movie they
That
did
too,
where they
yeah,
hired
that
a
too.
bunch of anime? Was it Halo Legends or
I
something
think
like
so,
that?
yeah, and they had, like,
Yeah.
different it's almost like, Animatrix where they just have, like, 5 different animation studios, each one's totally
Yes.
different, and I don't know, that's cool too, where it's like, "Oh, let's see,
Yeah.
like, how you guys interpret this," and yeah, I guess it just
And
depends, yeah, what the context is.
so I guess to move forward with Huxley, let's start with like what's your elevator pitch for the people out there? What is Huxley? What's the book all about?
It's well, the first book is maybe that sets the stage is there's, um, it's like this ruined planet called Fury 7. There's 2 post-apocalyptic scavengers that find an ancient sentient robot named Huxley that, turns out to be a lot more than they expected, and ends up being this kind of treasure map that leads them on a globe-trotting adventure that could change the fate of their galaxy and universe as they know it. Um, kind of, yeah, it's kind of maybe like the general setup, but there's a lot more there. But that's like the first book. The next book called The Oracle takes place maybe 30 or 40 years before when we see one of the soldiers called Max in his early days in the Ronin army uh, during the height of the Oracle Empire when the kind of AI wars are happening and um, get to see a bit of a bigger scope in the early years of the universe um, and kind of going backwards in time at the moment uh, in the IP.
And you did kind of hint upon this in earlier conversations, but where does the story in this book come from for you? Like, at what point did you say, like, I have this idea and I think it could be a really cool comic?
I think originally was when I drew the character Huxley. The style was kind of always there when I was a student. I didn't really have I didn't really know what it was, but the style was kind of always something I was drawing, but I didn't really turn it into anything until I drew Huxley. And then um something kind of clicked with that character. I was just, wow, this is so different. There's something really interesting about this. And um that slowly started me like forming a larger idea like who's this character, where's he from, what kind of other characters would be in this universe. Kind of in a way thought of it almost like a color script for a movie. I saw like 2 red characters and an orange character, and then it just kind of slowly started growing from there as I was like sketching out ideas and working on other movies and how would they find this character? Why is he important? Started a much longer journey for myself of like, okay, let me read a lot of storybooks, how to write, like what makes a good story, what makes a bad story, why do I like certain stories, why do I not like certain stories, what movies do we watch that stay with us and we can watch 100 times, like why does that happen? Why do some movies come out and we're just like that wasn't very good? I don't know why, but you forget about it the moment you walk out of the theater or turn off Netflix. But there's certain stories that resonate and stamp like stick with us for our whole life, right? And so a lot of it is like now it's my job now, or it was my job to hopefully try to achieve something um, that will be as meaningful as some of those things that were to me, um, and hopefully try to make something like that for other people by the end. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have this idea, you see the world and everything. Did you go about pitching it around, trying to see if there's somebody interested in it, or did you just immediately start working on it and say, I just gotta get this out of my head and I'll figure out the rest later?
I think a lot of it was just more for me because I think because I worked on so many movie pitches and things at the time, um, the idea was I really wanted to make something 100% for myself that was 100% mine. Because I'd seen so many people like go through the pitch system or they come up with a cool idea and they pitch it and maybe it gets bought and then it gets locked in a vault in Hollywood and they have no intention of ever making that. And so I guess I saw a lot of the pitfalls of how that works if I did something like that. I was like, you know what, I'll just make it myself. A graphic novel is still one of the few ways a single creator can make their own story and product and get it out there. It takes a long time, but it's still possible. Whereas if I wanted to make a short film or make a game, it can sometimes take thousands of people and many many years, and there's a lot of uh, chance of failure or never coming out. So I decided on like a graphic novel, and even though it did end up taking many many years, it's it was a way I could control and own and create something 100% myself. But yeah, I think it was always like I want to make my own product and say something that I want to say, write the story I want to write, and I also didn't want to like post about it too much when I was working on it because I didn't want to be influenced by social media too much. Like if I posted a page at the beginning and wow, this page got way more likes than that one, maybe I should change the whole story because of this
Mhm.
side character. And I didn't want to do that. So it's like I really wanted to have something that I thought was cool. Uh, and hopefully other people would think it's cool when it's done. And really try to be a bit of a purist about it if I could.
And I see that it came out a little bit, few months ago from this recording. How has the reception been from people?
That's been good, especially with like European fans, graphic novel fans. The the UK edition sold out, and they're already starting to do their next reprint. So it's been really cool to see. Yeah, it's been really the thing that's been exciting to me was seeing how far it's been distributed in bookstores, like going to like a Barnes and Noble and my books on the shelf. And I mean, there's a reason I want to go with the publisher, but I didn't really like check it out, and I was like, Is it really in Barnes& and Noble? Like, is it really finally in the bookstore?" Because I was waiting for that for so long. Because I was, like, trying to figure out, like, what's the best way to get it out there. I was almost gonna do it myself. I was figuring out, like, how to make books and, like, manufacture and get it on Amazon and stuff like that. Uh, but having a publisher, like, with that network and getting it out there, and it was, like, finally going to, like, a Barnes& and Noble and just seeing it on the shelf, I was like, "Wow, it's, like, really out there." It's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's benefits to both. I could definitely talk to a lot of people who do Kickstarters and do their own thing, but yeah, for some people, just you're creative and that's all you want to be. When you're running a Kickstarter, your PR,
It's a lot.
your advertisement, your everything. So I could see the benefit in for that. I mean, I think I know the answer, but why do you think it's been so loved over in the UK over maybe like here in the States?
I think I think it's very Euro influence. It's like very Japanese and French in a way, like mixed together. So there's a lot of those like influences, especially like meta variants and things like this. I think everyone who likes these kind of like old school European comics it would resonate with them a lot, like the Incal and Mobius and stuff like that. And I think there's definitely a big audience for that over there with heavy metal, and it will be the heavy metal magazine guys have. I think they finally found it, and there should be some news next month, which will be
Oh, very cool. Has there been a Japanese translation done for
not
it? Do you
yet.
know?
I'm really want there to be though. I think we're yeah, like I really want there to be a French and Japanese, especially translated versions, and the publisher's working on that, but I can't wait to see that. Yeah.
Do you currently only have it in English?
I think there's one or two other languages that start. I forget what the version it's not Russian, but it was it I'd have to get back to you with the name,
That's
but there's a couple languages that we did have, but it wasn't, uh, just not like Japanese and French and some of these other ones, but
not the
there
ones
was a
you're really
couple,
pushing
yeah.
for.
There was a couple, different languages that start though, yeah.
So I guess that kind of answers my next question, but I'll ask anyways. How much goes into with you with the translations? Do you just hand it off, or
Yeah, it's totally done by someone else,
yeah?
yeah.
So no point are they calling you being like, "What does this mean?"
Well, yeah, I
or
mean,
how like
it might be very different, I don't know.
I remember this old story in this from Chip Zdarsky about his book Sex Criminals, and there was a second book called Just the Tip, and the French translator said something like, "There's no translation for that in French because we don't just put the tip in." Was the joke,
Oh, I
and
see, I see.
I wonder if there's anything like that that popped up along the way. Like, did they ever call you and be like, "Hey, how do we translate this weird sci-fi thing?"
I mean, there probably would. I wonder how they would do that because there's some words that I made up, so they
Yeah,
would I don't know if they'd have to, like, use the literal English word, what they're mm, like, if someone's speaking in Japanese, when they get to a word that's only English, they just say the English word, so maybe that would be something like
yeah.
that, yeah, because there's definitely some made up sci-fi words that I just came up with, here and there.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of interviews with translators who do manga, video game translation stuff, and just fascinating how I mean, you could just throw it in Google AI and say, hey, blah, blah, this is what it says. But there's just like subtleties to every region's
Yeah,
language and everything.
for sure.
So something that makes sense in Japan will not make sense here in America for multiple reasons. And I find that fascinating how they pull that off as somebody that can barely speak English, let alone a second language.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see, and I'm curious how like, a lot of the books we've read, like, even, like, Akira and some of these other books, like, I wonder how much is different to the original Japanese, like, was there a lot more depth and subtlety in there, and it's just like, "Hey, get over here," or whatever, how it was translated,
Yeah.
like, was that more complex? I guess I wouldn't
Well,
really know.
Akira is a great test bed because you can find there's multiple translations of that book, including when it was first published by Marvel here in the States, and they
Hmm.
had their own translation, plus doing all the screwed up things they did with flipping the images because they didn't
Oh,
understand
really?
the. Yeah, there's a Marvel version that's printed in issues, I believe, and they would literally because they didn't think Americans would read right to left, so
Ah.
they literally flipped all the panels so that it would read left to right.
Was that the color edition too? Would they
I
made it
believe
colored?
it's was done in color,
'Cause I
yeah.
have those. It does look cool, like, it looks really cool to see, like, it
Yeah,
colored and, like, all this stuff, but I didn't really check to, like I didn't really realize they, like, flip stuff and change stuff. That's interesting.
yeah. I don't know if that's the modern colored version or not, but it's yeah, there's a lot of so that's a book that's been translated, like, 3 or 4 times.
Right.
So it'd be fascinating just to sit down with all the different versions and be like, "What's different?" "Oh, he said 'is' there instead of, this,"
Right,
or
right.
I got a little off track there, but so Huxley, when you're working on this book and you're finished with the first book, it seems like you want to do more with it, like you want to
Mhm.
build this bigger universe. Have you thought out like how far you want to go with it, or is it taking it book by book and just seeing what comes?
I think right now I have the first trilogy kinda plotted out, but it's definitely going backwards in time. So I kind of the second book is all done. The third book is sort of like the second part of a bigger story. So it's like 4 books for 3 stories right now.
Hmm.
So the next 2 books are probably gonna be, uh, right after each other and telling a bigger story, almost like do part 1 and do part 2 almost for, like, one bigger story.
Okay.
And then after that is going further back in time for the next, prequel book. Um, and then after that I kind of am throwing around ideas. I think after the end of Huxley gets kind of a bit crazy, so it could be like further out in space. And I intentionally was like, well, that gets really expensive and complex, going backwards in time. I know the kind of very human stories I can tell uh, going back, and I saw like a cool arc for some of the human characters, like showing how people are born into this world, how do they survive, how do they exist and join this army? Like, what is humanity's place in like a machine AI dominated future that's all messed up? Like, that's an interesting story to me, and I feel like a very relevant one because we're kind of almost doing that ourselves in very early stages. But like, what would that be like thousands of years in the future, and how would we survive and adapt, or just what would that world look like? Was really interesting and exciting to me to figure out some stories. And yeah.
One thing I love about sci-fi, especially spacefaring sci-fi, and I'd love to hear your how you handle it, is like the different alien races and how their different cultures collide with what we as humans view humans. So how much goes into you building these different cultures and trying to figure things out behind the scenes before you ever put pen to paper? I mean, are you trying to build like a Star Trek where you have like these planets and this is their culture and this is what's going on? Or do you see it more of a George Lucas style where you're like, that looks cool, we'll figure it out later?
Maybe there's maybe a little both because I guess because I worked on so many films and stuff, and I saw some things were really planned out, some things were something would just look so amazing, and he's like, I got to figure out a way to put this in my movie. Um, but I think for Huxley, because the original character was drawn, it was slightly stylized already, and when I drew the soldier characters, I knew I wanted these two red armored characters. And a lot of it based on what Huxley looked like, I kind of kept the style consistent, and that kind of dictated how they looked. Um, but later, when we did like a more realistic version for the trailers and other things, I started to put on my like movie or adaptation hat, like we
Mhm.
did for other people. So it was like, oh, if this was real, how would this look like? I know I kind of stylized the shapes, but what would like the photoreal, if we were going to build this as a costume, what would this really look like? And maybe that starts coming into play where it's just like, okay, what would this really look like? What kind of materials? If this was an alien planet, would they have this material? Should I make something up? Or should it be like based on like Kevlar on Earth? Or do we make up some sci-fi material? So somewhere in the middle, I guess, is the short answer.
Yeah, and watching the little trailer you did and then having the asset art you have here, and I'm pretty sure I know why. It's because you worked on these books. It reminds me so much, or these movies. It reminds me so much of those Neil Blomkamp movies that I've loved so much. It seems like that style bled through into that trailer. Has have you had any interest from the day job of people seeing this and thinking maybe there's something more, we could build something bigger with this, or um, a movie, video game, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely expanding this in a lot of different ways. I think a lot of it is just comes down to budget and cost, and something like this is definitely more expensive. But yeah, excited to see where this goes. But a lot of it is just things like this are quite expensive and take some time. But definitely pushing in that direction for sure.
And have you seen in that, like I said, there, for with your day job, have you seen in that world your coworkers, your contemporaries, have they noticed it and been out there? And what's kind of been their reaction to everything?
Yeah, they definitely. I'm amazed at how far it's gotten out there, and people that I didn't think like people definitely saw it. Like a lot of people saw it. Like, wow, that person really saw it. Um, and I'm definitely doing my job to like get the book in front of everyone, and it's definitely getting out there. I think like all my heroes and people I didn't expect like have definitely seen the trailers and have the books and stuff, and so it's interesting because like a lot of IPs that get made, it's definitely a result of like being out there for so long. Like Lord of the Rings has just been out there for so many years, or Dune's been out there for so many years, and starting with something new, it's like it just takes a bit of time. But that was the reason I wanted to get something physically published and have a huge distribution. So it's just like out in the world and slowly the slow crawl of physical media just takes time, but it starts getting into people's lives. Parents buy it for their children. Adults read it. And grow up with it, and it just needs to like get into people's lives and the culture in a way that you can't really rush. And it's definitely doing that, and it just takes a bit of time. But I'm really excited about that, and totally okay if like that process takes a little time, but it just feels pretty organic and natural. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a word of mouth industry. Like it's easy for a someone like me who's in the comics world. A Star Wars book comes out, buying it. I love Star Wars. A name creator X that I love book comes out. Yeah, I love that creator. Ben Mauro is a new guy to the field. Like,
Yeah. Well,
so
it's always a new thing to climb. It's always like a new
yeah,
mountain to climb. It's like, oh, if someone talked about me in game or film, they're like, oh yeah, of course. But it's like it's like, but in comics, like who, like what? But that's awesome. Like I love that. It's like a new mountain to climb. Like here's who I am. Here's what I do, and just getting the word out. And yeah, it's pretty exciting.
yeah, it's like I remember Gerard Wade coming to comics, and he's a massive superstar everywhere. Everybody, I grew up with people who love My Chemical Romance. Um, Came to comics, and we're like, we'll see. And he killed it. Don't get me wrong; like it's one of my favorite books of all time. But um, yeah, it's word of mouth. Somebody's got to pick it up, and people got to talk. And yeah, it's usually book 2 or 3 when people really start to be like, okay, he's got
Yeah.
something here.
No. I was thinking about that too. Like I remember when or even like traditional books, like I didn't know about Harry Potter until maybe book 3 or 4. And that's when like
Okay,
the momentum was starting to build a lot. But that's what it took for it to like get on my attention or something. Like the noise got loud enough around book 3 or 4. Where I was like, oh, what is this? This sounds pretty cool. Like I'll check this out. And then I read it. I read all of them like in a week or something. Like, oh my god, this is so cool! Like, how did I not know about this? When's the
yeah.
next book? Like, hey, come on, where's book 5? Like, hurry up! Uh, but it kind of takes that slow, like even some of my friends who are in traditional graphic novels kind of said something similar. Like, it took till book 3 before it finally started to like, oh wow, someone's like, this is something like
Yeah.
this is really cool. Like, why did I not know about this? And then it starts really um, finding its audience in a much bigger way.
Yeah, and I think naturally, as any consumer, it's so cool when that happens. Because for me, when I find a book, on this show, we've been going through a whole thing with one of our favorite writers, Colin Bunn, and the book that got him in the industry was Six Gun. Huge Colin Bunn fan. I'd never read Six Gun. Well, everybody's like, "How have you never read it?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna start reading it now." And now I've got 80 something issues of comics that are supposed to be some of the best comics I've ever read, to read. And there's something great about that, as much as we love the month to month or the week to week comic reading as well. Um, and have you, I see you've been doing a lot of podcast interviews and trying to put boots in the ground that way. Have you done a lot of the Comic Con scene?
First one we did was Fan Expo Canada, but definitely going to be doing quite a bit going forward from the publisher and my team, whatever they recommend. Yeah, it's been really cool, like, because I never did that
Yeah.
before, and the Fan Expo Canada was the first time I'd gone to a convention specifically for the book and talking with book fans, and that was really interesting too because it was interesting to see, like, a lot of people knew about it, or a lot of people saw the trailers and stuff and wanted to know more, and I was amazed at how many people already knew what it was, but just didn't connect the dots of, "Oh, there's a book, I didn't know that," like, "Oh, it's already out,
Hmm.
yeah, that's amazing, like, I wanna buy it now." So it's just interesting to see, like, what gets out there, what people understand, um, and just, like, yeah, connecting the dots in person, uh, as it's finding its audience.
That's not one of those fairly unique things about the comics world, too, that you really need to be boots on the ground, face to face with people in those cons. I mean, there's some of that in video games. I've been to PAX East and a few others, but it's different. It's just so
Yeah,
different than how comics world treats it. So I'm glad to hear that
right.
you're enjoying it.
Yeah, or for games and stuff, because it's such a huge thing, um, it's usually like, okay, I work on Halo, and there's like a 30-person marketing team that would be at these conventions, and it's like, but oh,
Yeah.
now it's you, like you are the 30 person. There's not 500 people working on this. Is you now. You like You and your small team, like, you have to do it. But it's really
Just
cool.
bending a
Yeah.
table. That's all you need.
Yeah.
So you said you have more planned out. You doing New York?
I think we were slightly too late for New York. The publisher in Barnes& and Noble has presence at a lot of stuff. There's some European ones also. Uh, so we're trying to find the the best ones to hit, that make the most sense. Whatever my team wants me to do, I will go. I will do it. Yeah.
Remind me, who was the publisher again?
Thames and Hudson, and it's a imprint of their company called Read Only Memory. That kind of this is actually their first graphic novel, so kind of took like I'm always I always like not necessarily taking risks, but like if a big traditional company wants to like get into graphic novels and things like this, and I had a feeling they'd probably get it out there in a bigger way than had I gone to a traditional graphic novel publisher where it's like maybe here's their 10,000th graphic
Yeah.
novel and that maybe they don't
Yeah.
really care as much. So that's been it's been cool to see that because I feel like that's been it's done what I hoped it was because I feel like it's gotten out there in a big way that maybe wouldn't have happened otherwise. Like yeah, like going to Barnes and Noble, like, oh my God, my book's there. Like that's incredible. Um, which maybe wouldn't have happened remotely close had I gone to like self-publishing or traditional publisher maybe.
Yeah, there's something to be said about a new company coming in. Like their success depends on your success a lot more than if you went to an Image, where Image is like, yeah, cool, Ben. Like I've got these guys over here doing this thing. Like, so it's got to be cool to have them believe so much that they're kind of building that whole arm kind of around your series, your book.
Yeah, and I
It's
take it really seriously too. So like
yeah,
like I think they see that I'm really serious about it and they're really
yeah.
serious about it and it feels like a good fit.
Yeah, both sides are helping out each other to make sure this is a success and gets
And
in
that's
people's
important too,
hands.
right? Because there was opportunities earlier where it's like maybe I could have got it published way sooner, but
Mhm.
maybe something didn't feel it's like finding someone who feels the same as aligned as you, and even if it takes a little longer, like that's okay. Um, because once it's out there, and it's hard to like change a contract or something. So it's
Yeah.
important to take your time. If there's a new creator working on their own thing, like it's okay if it takes a little longer if to make sure it feels right.
I say it probably feels right for you too because you're kind of an outsider to this industry. They're an outsider to this industry, and you're both trying to burst through the doors together. So you feel like you have the same mission on top of
Yeah,
just the book being great.
yeah. And I think
Yeah.
also like understanding the product, because it is a very like European influence kind of product. So it's like making sure people understand what it is and it gets in front of that kind of audience. And um, yeah, it's like finding the right partners for the specific product you made, telling the right story, making sure they can get it in front of the right audience that likes this sort of thing. Again, there's always a new mountain to climb. It's exciting.
That's the fun of life, man. So you guys have it seems like you've had a publisher who has a very more traditional book publishing background. How has been the distribution reception been from the comic stores in the United States? That's kind of backbone of our industry, really, in a lot of ways. Have you been able to get into comic stores, and how have they responded to it?
Right. I think there has been, but I haven't checked exactly which ones. I know there's a lot of like European comic. I forget the name of it. I have to get back to you on the name, but I remember they said that there was like two or three of like the bigger UK comic stores. It's like featured pretty prominently in the
Mhm.
stores. Um, I know they did get in quite a few US ones, but I haven't like physically gone like I did at Barnes and Noble. Uh, but yeah, it has gotten out there, but I just have to double check like what exact name or kind of thing of
Did you
stuff.
at any point like walk down to your local comic shop and just kind of browse to see if they picked up copies?
Not yet, but I was in Japan recently, so I was trying to see if like did it get over in Japan? But I think a lot of the bigger brands in Japan are very Western graphic novels is like a specific thing, and I was like trying to find like, oh, is it in this store? Is it in that? Just to see how far it got outside of like US and UK and stuff.
Yeah, I know. I've heard from a lot of people when they publish their first book. I obviously comics people, so they have their local comic shop they go to every Wednesday, and they go in there like, oh, there's my book right there.
Well,
And it's
it's
just
amazing because like it was interesting to see how far it got out there because I was sending the book to a lot of like my previous companies and bosses. So I sent one to like Richard Taylor from Weta, and he wrote something nice like, oh, thank you so much, this is really beautiful. But then like a week later, he was at a small town at the bottom of New Zealand, Christchurch, and he walked into some random small like comic shop, like not a huge chain at all. He sent me a photo of like my book was on the shelf at like literally at the bottom of the earth in some small little comic shop, and he was like, "This is so cool. Your book's like right there next to like Greg Brommer, who's like one of the District 9 concept artists. He has a comic book, and he's like, my book was right next to his book on the small comic book
oh, that's cool.
shelf, and I was like, wow. So it's really gotten out there like all over in a ways that I never I was hoping for, but I just wasn't
Yeah.
sure. So yeah, if it's showing up in teeny comic book shop at the bottom of New Zealand, that's pretty incredible.
Well, I feel like right now it's an accomplishment even more so because we lost the previous catalog, which I don't know if you're too much aware of that, but
Mm.
the big distribution company in our industry filed for bankruptcy, has been bought out. It's a whole kerfuffle in our industry right now. And we were given this catalog that had all the comics that were coming out because there was a monopoly on that industry for the longest time. COVID broke that monopoly. And even though we still had that catalog, it's since in the past couple of months has gone away. So it's really hard for retailers and more importantly, consumers to find those niche independent books in the seams that aren't just your regular Marvel DC. So for anybody to find it and really put in the effort and see that you have it, that's no from our point of view. That means somebody saw this and really pushed like, this is really cool. We need to get this in the store even more. Where in the past it would have been like, oh, that looks cool. It's a good synopsis. I'll bring a couple, see what happens.
Sure.
Where now it's really like they got to hunt down who's distributing it and all this kind of stuff.
That's really cool to
It's
hear because I mean that was because on mine like I'm always kind of a, I'll just do it myself. Like I
Mhm.
don't want to like I not necessarily get impatient, but like I'll if nothing's happening or it's taking too long, I'll slowly start like I'll just figure this out. Like if
Mhm.
worst case, like I guess I always plan for the worst case. Like if I can't find a publisher, how do I make my own book? Who would manufacture this? How do I even do that? If I had to do that, like how would I get it on Amazon? If I get on Amazon, like how do I get it in a bookstore? And I'm like slowly figuring all this out. I'm like, this is this is like absolutely like a full-time job, like doing this and figuring this all
Yeah.
out. Like ideally I find a great publisher that has been doing that for like 75 years. Like I did, but from the outside, everything kind of looks easy from the outside. But when you start digging into it, you're like, this is so much work, or this is just such a big thing than you think. And it's good to
Yeah.
have an experienced person that hopefully really connects with what you're doing and takes it under the wing and can get it out there to the audience.
So you guys released this as well, it looks like you originally released it as digital comics
Mhm,
and then eventually came out with the collected graphic novel version. There's a hardcover, soft cover, all that kind of fun stuff.
mhm.
When you're putting those together, I gotta assume you had a lot of extras put into those hardcover, soft covers, like forward and so maybe some of the concept art you had for it. Did you do a lot of that in the print edition?
Yeah, a lot of it was maybe towards the like what pencil drawings do we want to put in? Because there's a lot of like traditional, like originally I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to be the story. Uh, what I just thought about a lot of the comics I really liked, and I was like, oh, so cool to see Mike Mignola's drawings at the back of Hellboy. Like that's so awesome.
Yeah,
And there is a lot of like pencil drawings that I was like really proud of, and I know a lot of friends who bought it and they were like flipping back and forth, like, oh, look at how he did the pencil, and like look at how he painted it. Like that's so cool. Um, So I think a lot of it was really some graphic design changes, working with a friend, Brent Ash, who is a great graphic designer to help like do a more official looking final product. Some really nice like graphic design inside, and then some of these sections like, oh, here's the original covers, here's pencil drawings, to kind of turn it into more of a, like an official product than I would have done otherwise. The first book is maybe less of that. It's just a lot of it is very much like the book and story. But I think the second book, when it gets a lot more, the second book is more of like a kind of like story slash art book and less of a graphic novel. So the making of stuff and things to the back is definitely more, feels more like making of and less like pencil drawing.
Hmm.
Um, so that was definitely something that was a bit more in the next book. Yeah.
Did you call up a old friend or colleague to do a forward afterward kind of thing, or?
We don't have forward, but we did get quotes and things from like Neil and some of the people I worked with for like just saying like, hey, like this is really cool. But, worked with Ben a long time and all, this kind of stuff. It's stressful though doing that stuff. They're just like, hey, uh, how's it going?
Hey,
But it's cool.
buddy.
But everyone's like, oh yeah, man, I've saw this. Like this, I love this. Like, yeah, I'd love to. Um, so I'm always nervous doing stuff like that. But then when people get back to like, oh, of course, yeah, like yeah, like this is awesome, man. Um, but I don't know. We always get insecure about stuff like, oh hey.
Yeah, even in everyday life, calling up a friend, be like, "Hey, want to do a favor for me, buddy?"
But then it's also
Just
like,
spit it out, Chris.
but then it's also like when I do that, like I had my old art director Sparth. He wrote like a kind of like a quote for the book. But then he's like, "Oh, my next book. Do you want to write the forward for my book?" It's like, "Of course." So like everyone's also working on stuff. They're like, "Hey, do you want to do something?" Like, "Yeah, yeah, of course. I'd be honored."
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always scary to write the first like email or something like, "Hey."
So I think that's it's a great place for us to do a quick wrap up. Huxley out right now for everybody. Is there a timeline for issue 2 or volume 2, or are you guys still kind of just behind the scenes working on things, figuring that out?
No, book 2, so there's one of the publisher's imprints, volume, makes these kind of like beautiful hardcovers, and those start shipping out for book 2 later October, and the public version, that's in bookstores and Amazon will be in December, I think later December. So from October to December, there will be the early hardcovers coming out to the final ones for holiday season. Yeah.
So as people are listening to this, they can probably pre-order the second
Yeah.
volume.
So Huxley the Oracle is book 2, and it's a prequel to the original graphic novel. And early ones start shipping October, and the public versions will be out December for holiday season.
It sounds like people can get it everywhere: Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, hopefully the local comic shop, anywhere comics books are sold.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if everybody out there wanted to follow you further, see what you're doing, do you make poor life decisions like social media, or where can I send people to follow your work moving forward?
Maybe for Huxley, huxleysaga.com is a good one. We're on X, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. YouTube especially has been really really cool to see the fan base growing there from the trailers, and like we released a documentary like talking about a lot of this, like here's where this started, here's how it's been developed so long. It's been really cool to see a audience growing on YouTube, and personal sites. Ben Mauro Art or Ben Mauro is usually my account on Instagram and stuff. Yeah.
Definitely. So everybody out there watching, listening, you should know what's going on by now. I got show notes down below. Check those out. I'll have links for you. I'll pull a few links so that you can just click on those to buy the first volume of Huxley, and of course some of Ben's social media as well down there. So check those out. Follow him further. It really looks like you have a cool book here, man. I mean, I can tell by the
Thanks.
style and how you're talking about it. It seems like something right up my alley. So I just best of luck with volume 2, and hopefully you get to do this thing for however long you want to do it, man. Really
Thanks,
love
Chris.
what you got going on.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it.